Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for another session of our innovation series where you're going to gain the tools, mindsets, and frameworks to succeed in your startup journey. And yeah, we're excited to bring to you our 12th session, I believe, here. We kicked off in June and we're all the way now in October, providing a variety of tools and mindsets to help you get started and grow your innovations. And so today we're going to be tackling social innovation and how to innovate while making an impact. And for those of you that are joining us and haven't yet met our team, my name is Cameron Law. I serve as the executive director here at the Carlson Center. We have Arlene Miranda there, who's going to give the virtual wave, who heads up our marketing and operations. And then we have Jesse and Brian, who are our two entrepreneurs in residence, and they can give a wave there as well. And we're excited to really provide you with this awesome series. For those that haven't been able to engage in our prior sessions, we will be following up with recordings of those as well, so you haven't fully missed out. You did miss out on the live session, but nonetheless, you'll get access to the recording. But if you're not familiar with the Carlson Center, we serve as a regional hub and platform for providing approachable and accessible entrepreneurial education, community, and support to enable startup founders of all backgrounds to start and scale their businesses. And we're excited to bring this series to you. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over actually in a second to Brian. But what we have coming up, we have 2 sessions next week. So we'll be tackling capital strategy using groundwork for growth. So really how to understand the foundations of getting ready for the fundraising process. And that will be with Bob Crimmins, who is the general partner of Startup Haven Ventures. Then we'll be diving into innovation accounting and measuring your innovation ecosystem's performance with the author of the innovation accounting book, Dan Toma. And then we will be finishing with mastering customer discovery with Josh David Miller. So bringing 3 additional workshops your way. We also do have at the end of October a two series boot camp on IP and trademarking. So check that out. That's with our Office of Innovation and Technology Transfer here at Sac State. So we'll be following up with additional resources to plug into those workshops. So we look forward to seeing you next week and the following weeks as well. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Brian to introduce our guest speaker today, Jonathan Kaufman. So take it away, Brian.
Thank you, Cameron. Before I get into Jonathan, before I forget, you actually might see 2 other webinars that I know Cameron and I will be adding. One is going to be probably beginning of November on Black entrepreneurship, and we'll probably have a panel on that. And then in the middle of November during Global Entrepreneurship Week with Jim Pelly on who is a Saturday Night Live writer and comedian and leadership and founder and Sac State grad on kind of leading and culture and and laughter as well. So those 2 will be great. So welcome, and I'm glad you're here to talk about social impact, social innovation. And Jonathan is here to help us, and I keep inviting Jonathan back because he's amazing, and because I'm jealous that one day when I grow up, I'm going to have a beard like Jonathan's. So 56 years, and I still can't get it past a half an inch. So I gotta somehow, I guess, put some creams on there. I see Brad's got a great beard too, but just don't have that in me yet. So Jonathan is a co-founder with his brother and principal of Third Plateau. And Third Plateau is a full-service company that does nonprofit work around impact, helping them create their business model, strategic planning, leadership, culture, doing research, getting grants, and looking both from the funder side, who want to fund social impact ventures, as well as the nonprofits themselves. So Jonathan has worked with us the last few years on helping educate entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs who want to start a venture or who are already doing something and want to scale up or do even better. He's been a co-founder of even previous to Third Plateau, several other ventures, and guest speaker obviously for us, MBA from Washington University in St. Louis on nonprofit management and social entrepreneurship. So he knows what he's talking about. He's just an all-around great guy, and we're happy to have him in the ecosystem down here in Sacramento with us as well. So Jonathan, take it away, and appreciate you being with us.
Fantastic. Excited to be here with all of you. Brian, just so I can plan accordingly, do you need a couple minutes at the end of the hour to do wrap up and next steps? 2-3 minutes enough, or do you need more than that? Perfect. Okay, so really excited to be here. If you're able, because I always like doing stuff in person. I'm not a I used to do a lot of work on Zoom even before the pandemic, and then everything became on Zoom, and I got really sad about it. If you're able to turn on your camera and engage, please do. If you're not, no worries. But if you're certainly welcome to turn on cameras and engage that way. I want to start with just an open conversation, right? So I got asked to come talk about social innovation and entrepreneurship. What the hell is that? Like, let's actually just pull into an open conversation and start with what people's preconceived notions or stereotypes or assumptions as to what that is. But what is social innovation and entrepreneurship? Grace, go for it.
All right. It's like, are we hand raising? Are we jumping in?
Nah, we're jumping in. We don't raise. We're informal today.
Awesome. So when I think about social entrepreneurship, for me, it's really connecting the end impact of the business with something that creates change for the betterment of the community and the people and the clients that you are interacting and serving and reaching.
I love that. That's fantastic. Anybody want to add any other nuance to it? It's a really good start.
Yeah, when I think of social work, I'm thinking something like a nonprofit, something along those lines.
Yeah, where like that is their sole focus is that social good is what you're picturing.
Right, right.
Okay. Anybody else picturing something different? There's a really good starts to it. And I think so answer like you're both right, right? Like this is sort of different parts of the conversation. I'll sort of offer my general, like high level understanding of it. Actually, Grace, I think I really appreciate you used a few words there that I really appreciated, which is that your definition was broader than just like a nonprofit, right? Nonprofits are part of the social innovation ecosystem, but it's not all social innovation has to be a nonprofit or has to be a foundation. In fact, there's lots of stuff that you see and engage with every day that has a social mission to it or some type of positive mission, but you don't think of as a nonprofit, and they're actually not a nonprofit, and I don't really care about people's tax status. And that's maybe a good place for us to start. What I want to do today is unpack what we mean by social innovation, entrepreneurship, talk about the building blocks, what makes for good social innovation, entrepreneurship, and then talk about how you actually can apply it and what that starts to look like and some key questions to keep in mind. So we'll also end in a little bit of a conversation, and any questions that are on your mind, just interrupt and ask as you have them. Please don't wait for like a formal Q&A slide. I don't think I even have a formal Q&A slide because that's boring. So just interrupt and ask questions when you want. You don't even have to raise your hand. You can just take yourself off mute and jump into the conversation. All right, I'm going to do my least favorite thing in the entire universe, which is to share my screen and talk at you. It's my least favorite because people assume the conversation then should be one directional. It's like, here's me to give you information. Please just jump in. I won't even be able to see if you raise your hands. So just take yourselves off mute and jump into the conversation. All right, let me share my screen here. Get a thumbs up. You all can see the screen. Wonderful. Okay. So let's get into it. So thinking about how we think about what social innovation is and what this looks like. So I hate this graphic. This graphic got handed to me by somebody else on my team because we were trying to find something for it. I hate this graphic, but the concepts in this graphic are exactly right. So I wanted to highlight a couple things. You can see at the very top of this page, you've got sort of the nonprofit and the for-profit sort of divide in half here, right? Nonprofit being there's some social good contract that you have. You're offering something that's going to be to the betterment of society. And in exchange, we as society aren't going to charge you taxes, right? That's what a nonprofit is. You're offering something that we need in our community. It's really critical. It's really valuable. Please just focus on it. And in exchange, we don't want you to have to pay taxes on money that you're bringing in. Just make sure all that money is going to the social good. Then you get the for-profit side, which is saying, hey, you're generating revenue. You're a corporation. You should be paying taxes on the money that you bring in. That's really like, obviously, there's a lot more nuance to the distinction between those two. But for today's purpose, that's really where those divide is. You'll notice this social entrepreneurs thing cuts across all of them, right? It's really thinking about, it's not just about, hey, I'm a nonprofit. That's what makes me a social entrepreneur. And candidly, I don't think all nonprofits are I wouldn't classify all nonprofits as social entrepreneurship. I'd classify all nonprofits potentially as social innovation, but not as all social entrepreneurship. And not just because it needs to get started a certain way. So there's already a distinction here that's not breaking down cleanly in the nonprofit and for-profit line. You can see this mission growth and profit growth is a loose breakdown of where we see for-profit and nonprofit. But I want to highlight, like, this is really where I find a lot of the interesting stuff to be happening. So one thing that that got highlighted was, like, I think about nonprofits when I think about social innovation. I think about people that are trying to do something good in the world. I run a soup kitchen. I run a clothing closet. I run a job training program. I run affordable housing. I run fill in the blank. There's this really fascinating group in the self-sufficiency column here, where I'm running some type of nonprofit, but I have earned income to it. Could somebody give me an example of how I have a nonprofit that has earned revenue? Right? Earned revenue being revenue that's not grants, it's not government money of I'm getting a subsidy for something. I'm actually putting something in the market that has some value. People are paying me money for something. What's an example?
So would it be the one that comes to mind for me is I recently had the opportunity to attend a meditation with horses with an organization in Orange County, California that is kind of categorized as a horse rescue, but it's a service that they offer to generate income for the nonprofit.
And so what did you get to do? So you paid them some money out of your own pocket, and you got to hang out with the horses for the day?
So it was $50 for like hour and a half, and they went over safety and all that, and then it's literally a guided meditation, sitting in a paddock, so chairs like against the rail so that everyone stays safe and all that, with like 3 or 4 horses in the paddock and allowing that interaction. And then afterwards had us basically sit with like, what are we grateful for, and do an activity with the horses. In this case, it was brushing them, but it could have been like, I've talked to the founder a little bit and they do some different exercises and that kind of thing. But that was, to me, like, that would be an example that comes to mind, is that it was a service that was offered. So
yeah, great example, right? So there's a nonprofit that cares about rescuing horses and about animal welfare around horses. And in order to help, it's really taking care of horses is super expensive, really, really expensive. And so in order to help subsidize the cost for that, they offer people like Grace, hey, here's an opportunity. You can come be around the horses, pay us some money. They likely design that program with some profit margin to it. So that, they spend some staff time and some equipment for it, but likely they're generating enough money from people coming to it that actually leaves them with more money at the end of the day, which helps them cover the cost of the stables and the food and the health care and all of those kinds of things for the horses. It also sounds like that's probably fairly mission aligned, because I would have bet that interaction with humans in a calm setting like that is probably also really good for the horses. But we're obviously not charging the horses money for it, right? So Grace is paying some money, it's helping the horses, and it's generating money to help take care of the horses. Awesome. Another example of an earned revenue? Or
I can tell them from my own experience that I have Sheba Farms Foundation, a nonprofit, and I also have Sheba Farm LLC for profit. So I can grow my vegetable, my grain I use for my restaurant, and that would be nonprofit. But when I'm selling the product, so
I think I might have lost you.
Sorry. So the nonprofit will help me for training and education, educating the farmers, getting the land, getting the equipment and all that from the government fund. But once I grow the vegetable or the teff grain, then when I sell it, I can sell it through the LLC, and it becomes a profit.
So I appreciate the example. So that's actually like a totally different topic that we can talk about another time on it, but I like it, right? So you figured out a way to have a healthy dynamic relationship between a traditional for-profit company and a nonprofit, so that there's some exchange there and a really deep partnership, which is totally fair. I want to, let's keep thinking. Brad, I think you were about to jump in with a nonprofit that has some earned income.
Yeah, so our food bank out in Orangeville, we launched a 1-acre organic vegetable farm, And so of course we grow vegetables for the food bank, and it's, we sort of donate, but we have a CSA box where people can actually buy from the farm that helps to supplement our overhead and our costs. So it's we kind of think about it as kind of half and half. Half of the produce we grow goes to, for sale, and half of it's donated. But it's all under the 501c3 hood of the food bank.
Love that, Brad. So there are a lot of examples like this that you interact with on a daily basis, or you see on a regular basis, where there is some type of nonprofit that has an earned income strategy to it. So several years ago, you would walk around town and you would see tons of people with Livestrong bracelets on, right? That was all helping raise money for Lance Armstrong's foundation. And don't need to get into a conversation about Lance Armstrong, but the idea of like, he had a nonprofit and they sold these little bracelets for like $3 or $5 and sold millions of them, and it generated a ton of money for his nonprofit to then go do a lot of stuff. When I was fresh out of high school and I was in college and had no money, but I had all of a sudden I had an apartment I had to furnish, I didn't go to nice places to go buy brand new furniture. I went to places like Goodwill and Salvation Army to go buy secondhand furniture. Those are nonprofits that have big social missions about helping people get out of poverty. And one of the major ways they fund it is with their Goodwill stores or Salvation Army stores, where I can go and I can buy a couch for $80 instead of $800. And that's money they then get to go towards the programming that they provide, the job training to the people that are working there, right? It's just a way that they're helping to make money to help cover it. What about example of a for-profit company that has a mission-driven approach to their work? Anybody have an example of something that is very much a for-profit, but has a big social benefit to it?
Would that be like Tom's Shoes?
Oh, it's a great example, right? So Tom's Shoes, they make shoes, and then they actually, every time you buy one, they give a pair away. And candidly, if you meet with the executive leadership team there, they'll tell you the impetus to doing this was actually about giving the shoes away. They kind of backdoored themselves into a for-profit company of, oh, actually, there's like a really profitable way to do this. But yeah, their whole effort is trying to get shoes out to people in communities that don't really have solid footwear. Funny story about Tom's Shoes. The shoes they give away are far higher quality than the shoes you spend a lot of money to buy. They have much thicker soles. They're much more stable. The Tom's Shoes that you buy in a store that you and I might buy fall apart pretty quickly because they get you to come back and buy another pair. But they actually give much stronger ones away. So that's a good example. Anyone else have an example of a for-profit with a mission-driven strategy?
Cotopaxi is the one that comes to mind for me because they're pretty active as far as social media, and especially I've seen them crop up on like LinkedIn and that kind of thing, which is coming out of SaaS sales where most of my network is. So
yeah, so we're starting to see a lot of this in some of the clothing brands that are very eco-centered. So Patagonia is another big one in that same space, that kind of the brand is mixed in with conservation work, and it's, they sell really high-end fleeces that are incredibly nice, and a lot of that profit goes to help drive some conservation efforts, or where they source their materials from are thought about with, they're thinking about sustainability and locally in the ecosystem there. Things like that are all fair game. I would put the entire green energy industry in this category, right? It's a for-profit company that builds things like windmills and solar energy and hydropower and all of these things. They're able to generate profit after doing something that is objectively good for the community, right? And it's thinking long-term about what is sustainable and what's good for the world. I share this to highlight that I don't want people thinking about social innovation and entrepreneurship as it is just me starting a nonprofit and that's the end of it. That is definitely part of it. But we can think about social innovation and entrepreneurship regardless of what type of role you have, regardless of what tax entity you have, regardless of what your company does. There are ways to think more organically and holistically about what is the social good that we are providing. You can also see along the bottom here, this dependency, self-sufficiency, sustainability piece is really of like this dependency side. And the reason why we're not going to talk about it today, there's lots of good social innovation that happens here around, hey, I want to go build a new type of thing that deals with some critical social issue. In order to fund it, I need a lot of philanthropy to make it work. I'm not throwing shade at that group. That's where I cut my teeth and where I got my start. But when we think about really dynamic entrepreneurship and innovation, I want us to think about ways that they actually can generate revenue by doing it because it makes the work far more sustainable and self-sufficient. And that actually can allow you to have greater social impact at the end of the day. Okay, in order to do that, we need to think about the building blocks for social innovation. And there's 3 that I want you to walk out of here with: vision, mission, and theory of change. Huge caveat. Those of you that are coming out of a nonprofit background or some social innovation background, you might think of these as organization-wide, which is traditionally where they come from. What I want to highlight is you can think about these as big of a scale or small of a scale as you want to. It might be your entire organization's vision, mission, and theory of change, and I'll explain what these are in a second. Or it might just be your department's vision, mission, and theory of change, or this one program's vision, mission, and theory of change. So there might be, you might work for a really large pharmaceutical company. Okay, there's probably things there that are mission driven. There's things there that are very profit driven. But here's a certain program we're going to run that's all about getting this drug into the hands of people that don't have access to this drug. And so I want to talk about what's the vision and mission and theory of change of what that one program might be. So you can think about this. It doesn't matter what kind of company you work for. It doesn't matter whether you are part of a Fortune 100 company or some mom and pop shop. You can think about these and apply them to whatever context you're in. Okay, first up is vision. Vision describes that ideal reality that you're working towards. It's describing what is that world I want to see 2 and 3 generations from now. There's actually a beautiful thing that comes out, the way that I think about this comes out of indigenous communities that talk a lot about 7 generations. It's a very common concept. You see a lot of things in indigenous communities named 7. There's a 7 generations fund. There's a 7 generations legacy. There's a 7 generations network. There's things here that tie indigenous communities together. And one of these is a philosophy that tries to think in 7 generations at a time. That doesn't mean think 7 generations from now. What it actually is saying, understand how you got to where you are. Think about what your great-grandparents did, what your grandparents did, and what your parents did, the 3 generations before you, that made today's world possible. In all of the glory and the shame, what made today's world the way it is? What are the 3 generations that led up to this? That 4th generation is my generation right now. What are we doing with it? And as we plan for where we're going and how we make good decisions, we're not just thinking about our kids. We're not thinking about just our grandkids. We're actually thinking about our great-grandkids. What's the world we want them to inherit? How do we make investments that lead to that type of world for them? One thing that's really beautiful about it is it actually removes us entirely from the equation. By the time our great-grandkids are inheriting this world, nobody on this call is going to matter in a significant way. Our contributions to that world are long gone. Maybe we're still around, maybe. But if we're still around, we're likely watching other people kind of run the world and be part of it. And we're kind of just like enjoying what we've now helped create, but we're no longer in the driver's seat on it. When you think about your vision, it's not about where you want your organization to be. It's about what's the impact you want this to have. What does that world look like if you do this really, really, really well? There's a note here on the bottom left that says this may be shared with other organizations. I actually would change that to even say it should be shared with other organizations. I don't mean socially you should like market it and publicize it and share it in communications. I mean, the world that you're envisioning 3 generations from now is likely shared by lots of other people around you. That lets you know who your collaborators should be because you're trying to build that same world for your great-grandkids. I've got 3 examples here of vision statements that I think are like really getting at the point here. The Alzheimer's Association, their vision statement is not, let's be a really robust organization with even stronger funding and better pipelines for, government work and all sorts of great research. It's like, no, unapologetically, our vision 3 years from now, I don't hope anybody ever has to talk about Alzheimer's ever again. That's success for us. Save the Children, another great organization. Their vision statement is not, hey, let's build a better leadership team and let's have a team of this many and it's not about them. They're saying, here's the world we want to see. We want to see a world where every child can attain that something, right? There's like core fundamental things that we want to see every child have access to. Same thing with the ASPCA around animal welfare, right? We want to see a world where every animal is treated with respect and kindness. These are big, lofty statements that are kind of the North Star. And unapologetically, that's the world we're trying to build. Super important to have a really strong vision statement that's inspiring, that's painting a picture of a bold future that is worth us spending our time and energy and brilliance to work to build. The next step is your mission statement. So if your vision statement is this big, lofty idea that likely a lot of people are working towards, the mission statement is, here's how we uniquely contribute to that. Here's the piece of the puzzle that we're bringing to the table to help make it actually possible. This, again, this one says likely unique to our organization. This one has to be unique to your organization. If it's not unique to your organization, why do you exist? You just built a redundant organization. So there's some metaphors in here around puzzle pieces, and I'll explain sort of why I use that one. I grew up doing lots of puzzles. When my family would go on a trip or we go on a weekend away somewhere, we would inevitably bring puzzles. It takes over the dining room table, right? If like we're renting a house somewhere, like that dining room table is puzzle space. Like how dare you use it for eating or anything else? We can eat on the floor, we can eat on the couch, we can eat on the kitchen counter. Eat quickly and get back to the puzzle, but the puzzle owns that dining room table. And we like doing really big puzzles. The two most frustrating things that happen when you're building a puzzle, one of them is you're missing a piece. Oh my God, it's so unsatisfying to have 1,000-piece puzzle and to see 999 of them be in one place. And you're like, oh my God, I don't feel like it's done. It's so unsatisfying. The more frustrating thing, and this happens fairly frequently, is manufacturers of puzzles, they put in two identical pieces by mistake. There's not a lot of quality control in the puzzle industry, right? No one's going to get hurt. So usually it's people just kind of churning stuff out quickly. Mistakes happen all the time. And you end up with two of the exact same piece in the puzzle. And you're there and you're looking at this piece and you're spending 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour trying to figure out where this puzzle piece should go, only to realize, shit, I already put this puzzle piece where it needed to go. I answered that a while ago, and I'm looking to put this piece that actually is not needed. I should have thrown this away. It's not needed. When you think about your mission statement and your vision is explaining a puzzle that's way too big for you to do alone. Building a world where all these kids have the opportunity, to Save the Children example that I gave. A world in which every child attains the right to survival, protection, development, and participation. Save the Children can't do that on their own. They need school districts to be part of this. They need hospital systems to be part of this. They need child protective services to be part of this. They need governments to be part of this. They need, you name it, they need a whole lot of different players to be part of this. That's the puzzle that they're trying to build. Their mission statement is, what are the puzzle pieces I'm bringing to the table? And how do they fit with the puzzle pieces everybody else is bringing to the table? I want to make sure those puzzle pieces fit together. I want to make sure we're not missing one. Similarly, of why I need this to be unique to my organization, I don't want to bring a puzzle piece somebody else already brought. It's just going to waste resources and time and energy. If we're better at bringing that puzzle piece than the other organization, great, let's have that conversation. If they're better than us, great, let's throw away that. We don't need to bring it then. Let's just go in with theirs. You're thinking about a 3 to 10 year horizon for these. Where can I play a meaningful role in in like medium term to help advance to make that puzzle complete? The last piece of this is the theory of change. It's the explanation of how your mission is going to achieve your vision. How do those puzzle pieces fit into that puzzle? How are they going to fit with all the other puzzle pieces people are bringing? Why do those puzzle pieces matter? One other metaphor that I like to think about for a theory of change is a chain reaction of dominoes. So let's say that I run a soup kitchen. I don't run a soup kitchen because I love serving people meals. I run a soup kitchen because I hate hunger. I want to see hunger eradicated from my community. I can't go out tomorrow morning and go end hunger for my community. I wish I could, but I don't have that power. Nobody has that power. So think of that as a domino that's too far away for me to reach. I can't reach quite far enough to knock over that domino that says hunger's been eradicated in Sacramento. But what I can do is I can open up my facility, I can serve 3 hot meals a day. I can provide opportunity for people to get, put their feet up and relax a little bit, maybe get some new clean clothes or do laundry, maybe get access to other services like job training or mental health or addiction services, whatever else might be needed. I can knock those dominoes over. All right, if I knock over the domino that says, okay, I can open up my facility and offer 3 straight meals a day, great. What domino does that knock over? Well, if someone doesn't have to think about where their meals are coming from, that's less stress in their life, which is going to make sure they're a little healthier. It's going to give them healthier food, so they probably need to deal with less like ramifications of eating unhealthy food or starving themselves. Now it means they've got more brain power and physical energy to pursue things like job training. Now they can go for interviews and be better candidates in those interviews. Now they can get a job. Now they can make their own money. Now they can buy their own food. They don't need to come to my soup kitchen anymore. That's a chain reaction that I want to see. That chain reaction is a theory of change. Really important as you think about the social good that you want to have. What is the good that you can actually do? And connect the dots. Why does that matter? How does that lead to other dominoes falling over, to eventually the domino of your vision falling over and you being successful? Every social impact effort falls into one of 2 buckets when it comes to a theory of change and a vision. Everything, whether it's a full nonprofit or whether it's one small program or one small initiative of a much larger organization. Everything falls into one of 2 buckets for when you care about social impact. Bucket 1 is I solve the problem and I can close up shop. Alzheimer's, right? The Alzheimer's Association, their goal is to run themselves out of business because they cured a disease. My soup kitchen is trying to eradicate hunger permanently, not just for breakfast, because guess what? Later in the day, people get hungry again. They need to come back and eat more. Okay, I'm actually looking to eradicate that level of poverty from my community. I'm trying to build solutions that build permanent, sustainable, systemic solutions to those social issues. I'm trying to work myself out of business. My dream when I run a soup kitchen is not to see all of my tables full at every meal. It's actually for me to open up the doors and nobody comes in because nobody needs it anymore. That's bucket 1. I worked myself out of business. Bucket 2 is, well, that's not really possible for me in other things. Let's say I run a hospital. My goal is not to make everybody healthy today so I can close up shop and not have to have a hospital tomorrow. Kids are still going to break their legs. People are still going to need to go. People are still going to go into labor and need to give birth. People are still going to get cancer. People are going to need to checkups on stuff. They're going to need support. My goal is not to close all hospitals. My goal is to build a better system of healthcare so that everybody gets the support they need, the way that they need it to be able to live the lives they want to live. Not have to deal with a bunch of headaches, not a lot of complications about what kind of healthcare I need. How can I afford it? How do I fit this in my schedule? I just want it to be easy for people. I don't want this to be a headache. I want this to be a place people come when they need it so they can get back to doing everything else they want. I want a better status quo. Education falls in that category. I can't educate and teach all of my kids. I can't teach all the kids how to read and then close all the schools, because there's going to be 3rd graders next year that now need to learn how to read, and 3rd graders after. And 10 years from now, there's still going to be kids that need to learn how to read. What I want is a better education system so that every kid is able to thrive and learn and be curious and vibrant and be successful pursuing whatever it is they want to go pursue. I want a better status quo for the education system. So that's the first gut check when you think about your vision and your theory of change. Am I trying to work myself out of business because I solved the social issue? Or am I trying to build a marketably better social status quo and get us to there so that the headaches are removed and people are just getting the benefits of this? Okay, these 3 things are the building blocks. Are the building blocks of what social impact looks like. I have on here the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is how the UN thinks about social change and about sort of what that end game is. So you can see some of these are the 17 goals where all of the UN's efforts and a lot of the international nonprofit and non-government organizations work is organized around these. This is often a really good place to start if you're not sure where to start. But you can see some of these things are around like eradicating a problem. No poverty. The UN believes, and I agree with them, we should be aiming for a world where nobody is living in poverty. The UN believes, and I agree, we should be aiming for a world where there is zero hunger. That's eradicating a problem. If your organization is focused on alleviating poverty or alleviating hunger, my goal is that you run yourself out of business. Reduced inequalities, decent work and economic growth. Those are moving targets, right? We want to think about how do we build systems that lead to better status quo for people. So you can see the UN thinks about this too. Some of these are, the end game is about let's run ourselves out of business. Some of these, the end game is let's build a better status quo for how we can work together. When you think about your theory of change and your mission statement, if you're not sure where to go, these 17 ideas are usually the right places to start. It almost certainly would fall into one of these. And there is a ton of literature around all 17 of these goals. These three pieces, your vision, your mission, and your theory of change, are the building blocks. You need to be able to answer all of these. If you want to be pursuing social innovation and entrepreneurship, this is your why and your how. I'm going to say that again because that's super important. Your vision, your vision is your why. Why am I doing this in the first place? Why am I pursuing this social good? Why do I think it's so critical? Your mission and your theory of change is the how you're going to go about doing it. Here's the way that we're going to move the needle on this issue that I care a whole lot about. I'm going to pause for a second. Any questions about this? Anything really resonating, or anything you want to call bullshit on anything or push back on anything? Glad to see you put something in the comment here. I love it. Sort of reinforcing the UN about sort of what that can look like. I love that. Okay, these building blocks is the starting place. As you think about social innovation, you got to be able to answer these questions first. Grace?
Yeah, just thinking about the generational piece. I don't know that it's even a question, but it's a scale that I haven't contemplated before. And I think especially for the business I'm starting, and that's a very interesting lens that I hadn't thought about, of like really stretching on that. What is that far-reaching impact and implication of starting an organization? So yeah, thank you for sharing that. That just, it's a brain tease. I think my brain's like, oh wow, well that's a very big question. So.
Yeah, and it's I'll take that a step further, Grace, too, right? Like it's there's an audacity and a responsibility to answer that question, right? Like, how dare I describe what the world should look like 3 generations from now? Like, I'm a mere mortal. What do you mean you want me to tell you what the world's going to look like 75 years from now? And here I am telling you to have the audacity and the boldness and responsibility of thinking of this the other way around. How dare you waste resources without knowing why you're doing it?
Yeah.
And I don't just mean money. I mean like your own time, right? If you want to be doing social good in the world, your time is finite. You better have a really good understanding as to what does, like, big picture, why are you doing it this way instead of this way? Or why are you focused on this instead of that?
Yeah.
There's a million possible answers that you could have for that. But actually having like really the comfort and the inner peace to be able to answer that clearly for yourself is going to save you so many headaches down the line. It becomes the rubric of like, one of the things we see organizations struggle with a lot is knowing whether a new opportunity is a really good opportunity or whether it's a shiny distraction. And the reason they struggle with it is because they don't have clarity as to that world they're trying to see 75 years from now. And they don't understand how that chain reaction of dominoes of their theory of change, they think it works. And so they see this new thing and they try to assess it in a vacuum. Well, is this a good idea or a bad idea? When really the question they should be asking is, does pursuing this idea get us to that vision more effectively than we're currently doing it? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, great, let's figure out a way to do it. If the answer is no, get out of my way. It's a shiny distraction. I'm going back to the work that I know is actually meaningful and needed.
Yep.
Yeah, Brian, I appreciate the nuance there. That those big picture vision statements is good for all business. I dedicated my life and my career to just the social impact side of stuff, and so I do think it drives me nuts when I don't see some clarity, especially from founders, into like that big picture why and having the audacity to actually answer it. All right, I want to get to another model that's often very helpful as you figure out how to go to market on things like this and what to do with it. So I believe you've already talked about the business model canvas in previous classes. I think that's come up in other sessions that you've had before.
Correct.
If not,
Yep.
yes, right. Yes, wonderful. So this is a mission model canvas. It should look and feel very similar, but with a couple of really important differences. You'll see in the top right, it doesn't say customers, it says beneficiaries, right? It's already a little bit of like a reworking of how I think about who it is I'm serving. Who is going to benefit from this thing that I can do, right? Who is the beneficiary of this social good I want to provide? You'll also see on the bottom a little bit different. I always tend to do, the mission, budget, and cost of like, all right, it's still important to talk about like, where's my money coming from and where's my money going to make this happen? But I try to put all of that actually into the bottom left. That's sort of like my revenue and my cost all together. And so I can focus the bottom right on the like, so what, right? For a business, for a for-profit business, my bottom right is like, where's my money coming from and how much of it am I going to see? What do those margins look like? And how do I actually like maximize where that revenue is? For social impact, I want to see that bottom right focus on, well, what's the social good that's going to come out of this? Is it the scale that makes me excited? How do I actually amplify that and ramp it up and make it as exciting and powerful as I want it to be? This is a super, super, super valuable tool, right? I love these things because it forces you to get really precise and really clear about what do I do for who and how does it all work? When you're thinking about social innovation and social entrepreneurship, this is probably a slightly better version of it to use because it forces you to actually think about it with a social impact lens. Not just who am I selling something to, who's benefiting from this and how do they benefit from it? How do I make sure they get that benefit? How do I track that benefit? And how do I know if I'm actually getting closer to seeing that vision come to life? All right, I'm going to stop my screen share. We've got about 10 minutes left before we need to get to sort of like other housekeeping pieces. I want to just open up for some questions or thoughts. What do you have questions about? What are you struggling with? What other things have you sort of seen or other frameworks that you think are really related that you want to add into the conversation?
I do have a question. So we did mention a little bit talks on like social work and then also how to kind of make that happen. So the vision and everything like that. One thing would be, how do you even generate that vision to begin with? Like, how do you know, like, okay, this is what I want to do and how do I want to tackle it down? So kind of like the first step before doing the mission. Yeah.
So this is, look, I owe you a 5 spot. It's like a perfect transition for one of the key takeaways I want to make sure that you all get. I don't know most of you, but I'm sure you're all wonderfully brilliant, passionate, good humans. So take this with a grain of salt when I tell you, you do not have the answers for the world. And you by yourself are never going to have the answers to the world. You have to talk to people and you have to listen to them. This is true for all innovation. Remove the social for a second, right? When you think about design thinking, lean startup, design thinking, it's all about, I want to go talk to my customers or my prospective customers or my end users. I want to understand the problem statement from their perspective. I want to empathize with them. I want to understand what is it they're thinking and feeling and what is it that they need. That's what anchors me and allows me to start to think of what are possible solutions that I might be able to offer for them because I'm creative and entrepreneurial. So I want to hear what that problem is so I can help start to think about what possible solutions are. same should hold true for social innovation and social entrepreneurship. This is not how social innovation worked for centuries. Heads up, it didn't work super well. You know what we call it now? White saviorism. It's the, hey, I know what's good for this community because I come from a community that has resources. So let me go into this community that probably looks different than me, talks different than me, has different cultures and habits and priorities and values than me. But let me impose my thinking and say, okay, settle down. Here's the solution for you. You're welcome. And then you expect everyone to like raise you up of like, hooray, you did it. You solved all of our problems. Thank you for coming in and doing it. That's the way philanthropy worked. That's the way that social innovation worked for centuries. It is the colonizing version of social impact. It's 2023. You're here in an academic setting. I assume it doesn't take a lot for me to tell you that's a pretty shitty way to think about the world. And if it's a good gut check of maybe I should approach this a little bit differently. So, Vokil, to your question, Vokil, am I saying that right? Or do you pronounce it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it's spelled, but you say it with the W-A, Wakil.
Wokil. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So that's right. Get into the communities that you're looking to support. Maybe you come from there, maybe you don't, but you have to talk to other people and listen to what is the problem statement from their perspective. Don't go offer somebody a solution and expect that you're the savior there. You're not going to be well received. In fact, you might actually do more damage than good. You care about social innovation, you care about social good and some social impact. Go talk to who are the end users, who are those beneficiaries that you want to be supporting? Engage with them with open mind about what it is they're seeing, what is their lived experience telling you and telling them about what's possible and what's not possible, and where they see opportunity. Think about that as the exact same way that you do with design thinking and lean methodology about what is the pain point, what's the problem statement, now how do I get creative and build off of that? So that's really where you want to be in conversation with your communities and listening to people. And that should be a constant feedback loop, right? I'm almost positive you guys covered design thinking and lean methodology already in this program. Brian brings me in to offer a little bit of a social lens to all of these things. Those are all exactly the same frameworks you want to use in social innovation, but now you have to do it with a lens of social good on top of it. The problem that you're hearing is not, hey, my phone doesn't work as well as I want it to. Can you build me a better app? The problem I'm telling you is I don't have access to good, healthy groceries. I live in a food desert. I don't know how to cook healthy groceries. My culture doesn't think about it this way, or I wasn't raised with those types of thinking. I don't know how to cook healthy for myself. I don't have access to healthy food. Or the recipes I get are they don't taste good to me. My culture likes foods that are spicier or less spicy or have this type of thing in it, and I don't really like that. Right? What is your community telling you of the people you want to impact, and how do you be in constant conversation with them? And use that as a constant feedback loop. So they're part of designing what that solution looks like. They're part of assessing whether or not it's working. And they're part of assessing where their opportunity to make it better and how you iterate on that to make it even stronger. And that should never, ever stop. So when you think about what is my vision and what's my mission and my theory of change, if I don't even know where to start, okay, that's where you start. Go talk to the communities you care about helping and listen to what you think they need. Listen to what they think they need. Help engage in a conversation authentically with them and see if that gives you a little bit of a starting place to go, you know what? This is the world we should try to build 75 years from now. How does that sit with you? Let them be part of that process. Love that question.
Yeah, thank you. That was an amazing response.
Other questions, other thoughts?
Feel free to unmute, or you can put it in the chat.
Guys, I have so much to learn. It's going to take me 75 years to learn it.
Now you get the personal vision statement, which is in 75 years from now, June, you can have all of the deep knowledge and wisdom. It's an ongoing process. This is something that we say all the time, nobody has all of these answers. And actually I think this is a big change the way that our world functions and thinks now versus the way that we did during the Industrial Revolution, for example. Nobody has the answer for what the world needs. And it's like, what is it, the expertise and the lived experience you bring to the table? And how do you mix it together with all of the expertise and lived experience of the people around you to build something that you can be proud of, that's meaningful and worthwhile of your energy and your resources?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Don't be shy.
Since nobody has a question, would you be able to kind of dive into how you found out your mission for your company? I believe it was TriPoint.
Third Plateau. The initials are right. Yeah, no worries. It's okay. I mispronounced your name. You can butcher my company's name. So I've spent my entire life trying to figure out. I knew I wanted to work in social good. I have zero interest in helping somebody make more widgets or how to sell more Coca-Cola or what. Like, I just don't care. Like, people want to spend their time on it, sure, but I get no reward out of it. I don't sleep well at night. I would feel wildly unfulfilled as a human. I spent my entire life pursuing where can I go have the greatest social impact. And for a long time, I sort of bounced around from sort of philosophy to philosophy, trying to figure out where did that allow me to put that fulcrum to be as useful as possible with the lever that I had. For a while, I thought it was politics. You want to build a better world? Go help good humans get elected because they can build better policies and change what a system looks like. Good in theory, but then you lose an election and you're like, oh man, now we don't get to do the thing we wanted, and somebody we disagree with gets to do the thing they wanted. I don't like that gamble. So then I got to direct service nonprofit work. And I wanted to go work on poverty alleviation. I couldn't understand why in a country as rich as America, how do we have people that are begging on the streets, sleeping on the streets, not knowing where their next meal comes from, barely scraping to get by, if even getting by. That's unconscionable to me. And so I wanted to work on poverty alleviation. So I worked on hunger relief for a while. I worked on homelessness for a while. I wanted to get to more root causes. So then I started working on mental health issues. Then I wanted to deal with something really different. I got to work on refugee rights, of like, how do people in sort of transition navigate a lot of this stuff? And then I realized I like all of these issues. I don't think there's one that's a silver bullet. These are all wicked problems and they're all interrelated. And so I wanted to build a consulting firm that allowed me to dance across all of these issues and help people think about their best practice. So my vision statement, I run a consulting firm. Like, my day-to-day work is actually helping other people clarify and further their missions and the work that they do and the programs that they build. But my vision statement that links all of it together, 75 years from now, I want a world where everybody has equitable access to abundant opportunity. Full stop. I don't want to tell people what the world should look like. I don't want to tell people what their life should be. I want everybody on this planet to be able to pursue what they want to pursue to the fullest. And I want them to have the opportunities to go do that. And so all of our clients at Third Plateau are somehow helping make that possible. Sometimes by building better education systems, sometimes by dealing with poverty alleviation, sometimes through green energy, sometimes through saving democracy. All of those things are part of, like, let's build a world where everyone has that equitable access to abundant opportunity. And that came out of a lot of years of like just seeing in this space and getting frustrated with it, and then having the audacity to say, screw it, I'm just going to plant the flag here, and I dare you to tell me that's the wrong place to aim. All right, before we have to close and I turn it back to Brian to wrap up, I want to touch on two different things here. One of them is something I mentioned very briefly earlier, which is I've seen the curriculum and the syllabus that you're working through in this. There is not a single session that you have talked about that is not applicable to social innovation and entrepreneurship. Every single topic that you have talked about and worked through and wrestled with, all of it is applicable to social innovation and entrepreneurship. This is not something that is different. It has a different lens to it, or you might be aiming in a slightly different place, but really it's like all of the things you've talked about, all of it is true, plus now you have a social innovation angle to it. Not only am I going to build a smart business, but I want to build one that has a meaningful and worthwhile vision and mission and a theory of change. And I'm going to be in conversation with beneficiaries to help further what that can look like. The second piece I want to say is I don't care where you work. I don't care what title you have. I don't care what type of company you're in or what sector you're in. Everybody has an opportunity to think more about social innovation and social impact in their role. And it is an abdication of your responsibility as part of our society to not explore what that can look like and what role you can play to further it. None of you are in the genocide business. Short of that, everything you do is about making the world a better place. It might look really different based on your industry, but I want you to use it as a chance to like gut check yourself to go, okay, even if what I do is produce widgets that don't, in theory, have social good, well, what are the ways that you employ people? What type of environment do you create in your factories? What does your supply chain look like? Where do you get your materials from? Are there ways that you can take a social impact lens to those so that the work that you're doing is adding to the social fabric we're trying to build and not detracting from it? And if we get more of us thinking about the social good we can have in whatever role that we're in, we're going to end up in a much better place, and it's going to make that 75-year vision for all of us far more accessible and far more achievable. Okay, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Always open to more conversation. I can share my slides afterwards, and you've got my contact information from there. With that, Brian, I'll hand it back to you.
Good stuff as always. Thank you very much, Jonathan. And before we give him a thank you for all of us, just wanted to let you know that yes, you'll get the recording. Yes, you get the slides. We'll be sending out that link. Cameron always does. Yes, you can find the tools online that Jonathan showed, the mission model canvas. I already put that in the chat, right? That you can just Google search. That's from Strategizer. It's free. Same thing with theory of change, right? You can get some great infographics and tools. Let us know if you have specific questions. We're happy to do some office hour, mentor hours. Cameron had showed you that we have some upcoming series. So again, next week, the 10th, we have Dan, who's going to talk about innovation accounting, more for the corporate setting. Doesn't matter if you're a profit, nonprofit, impact or social venture or not. So those are always good things. And then we have both funding as well as then Josh, David Miller talking about customer discovery. So a lot of things coming up. Please look at the link Cameron put there in the chat, innovation series. Cameron, anything else you want to mention?
Nope, just you'll be seeing an email from me with all those resources. Do sign up for the future sessions. And thank you, Jonathan, for joining and tackling this discussion on innovation and impact. And thank you all for being in the space and exploring how to make a difference and make an impact in our communities and beyond. So definitely continue to engage the series, and thank you all.
With that, maybe you can all help me give Jonathan a big warm Zoom thank you and emojis and all these things. So awesome stuff. Thanks for being a friend of the center and helping us out. You guys have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.